Alex Cora is a good manager who works well with the Red Sox players, but expectations are high for him going into the 2025 season.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut, Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I'm here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox Monday through Friday straight to your favorite podcast feed. And the best part is it's free. So you really have nothing to lose but continue to tune in because you can get Red Sox content every single day here with Locked On. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the show. Congratulations on being halfway through the week. And it's almost February 1st, which is honestly insane to think about. Time really does fly. And why is that important? Because February 1st marks the month that we see spring training games on our TVs. How exciting is that? I am so looking forward to having baseball back in some capacity, and I cannot wait to see the Red Sox play again on my TV. And there's been a lot of question lately surrounding what the expectations are for the 2025 season in general for this team, including manager Alex Cora. So today I'm going to be touching on what the expectations are for him going into the season. And also, are the Red Sox done making big, substantial moves? They've added some depth pieces over the last few weeks, but they haven't really made a big splash since when they signed Walker Buehler. And what does them possibly being done, especially with the infield situation, indicate their trust in their young players? So I'm going to be going over that too, as well as a depth signing that the Red Sox did make recently. So lots to discuss on today's show, but the biggest thing that I have always said about this Red Sox team is that they have a good manager. And ever since Alex Cora has been the manager of the Boston Red Sox, I have been Team Cora from the start. If you go back to really early episodes from when I first started hosting this show, I've defended Alex Cora a lot. Now, granted, do I think he's perfect? No. No manager is. Do I sometimes think he makes questionable decisions, particularly when it comes to his bullpen management? Absolutely. But do I think he's a good manager for this team? Yes, primarily because he is a player's coach and he knows how to connect with these guys. I have spoken with Red Sox players who have spoken very highly of Cora and have said that they haven't really had a coach who's like him, in that he really takes the time to get to know these guys and their lives off the baseball field and doesn't just focus on what they can contribute on the field. And that's really cool to be able to have a manager who does that, because you don't really hear of every manager taking that time to get to know these guys off the field. And that skill is going to be particularly important for him heading into 2025. And my biggest expectation for Cora is to get to know those young players on the team and help them prosper into the best level of talent that they can be. Cora has the personality to be able to go out there and make any player feel special and important, because that's just always how he's been as a manager. And with such a young roster that the Red Sox have right now, with lots of players who are either going to be playing in a Red Sox uniform for the first time in 2025 or are still early on in their careers, it's a good combination of young talent that has helped formulate this core that the Red Sox have been trying to build over the last few years. And whether some of the guys get called up from the minors that I'm going to be discussing a little bit later on today's show, or we're talking guys like Tristan Casas, Wilyer Abreu, Cedar Rafaela, guys who still don't have a ton of exposure to the major league team, there's still more to learn and more for Cora to establish when it comes to their work ethic and the best way that they learn. And I'm not saying you can't continue to learn about every player. It just is a little bit extra when it's the players that you don't know as much about because they just haven't been around as long. So that's a big expectation I have for Cora is develop that personal relationship with everybody on the roster that you're so good at doing so that some of the younger players can feel welcome on this team and feel like their strengths are being recognized, because I feel like it's easy for a young player to get discouraged if they hit this bump in the road early on in their career when they first get called up to the majors and they feel like things aren't going right for them. And players can get a little frustrated by that. But if you have a manager who's able to elevate you and keep you going and encourage you even through those tough times, then those young players are going to establish more belief in themselves, which will help them emotionally to succeed at the major league level. So that's a big expectation I have for Cora. And if he does that, the results will come. The results absolutely will be there if you have a team that feels connected and unified. And yes, in 2024, things were very frustrating for this Red Sox team because it didn't seem like things were going right. There were a lot of mistakes that they were making, and it was almost like, at least what felt like, they found a different way to lose a lot of nights. And the fact that things went as wrong as they did in 2024 and the Red Sox were still in the playoff conversation for the majority of the season, Cora is a big reason to thank for that because he continued to establish that family-like atmosphere among his players. And I'm sure he said something to them along the lines of, I know things are frustrating right now, but we are still in that wild card conversation. So don't take your feet off the gas because we still have a shot. And that's what I really like is him not giving up on his team. And you can even tell from his press conferences and interviews that he really doesn't give up on his team. And there's always that door open that he's leaving for his team to go out there and perform better. So that's definitely a big thing for me. And challenge guys, put them in positions to where they're elevating their game on the field. For example, one thing from last year that I really liked was him stretching out Tanner Houck and Cutter Crawford and even Brian Bayo and having them pitch more innings than they're used to throwing over the course of their careers, because it really allowed them to challenge themselves and create some more stability in their arms and more endurance so that they can pitch deeper into games. And I guarantee you the fact that Cora did that with them this past year is going to serve them really well going into 2025. Because yes, we saw some decline in the second half of the season, especially from Tanner Houck, but I don't believe that was due to his stuff getting worse. I believe it was more fatigue because of the fact that he had pitched more innings and taken on more of a workload than he had ever been used to before. So if he now is more used to that type of workload, then hopefully he can maintain the level of consistency that we saw from him in the first half of the season going into the second. Even a guy like Rafael Devers, I mean, he was injured in 2024. Yes, he played through the pain of what was going on with that shoulder, but he battled through it and he didn't put up the numbers that he wanted to put up. But Cora should set a threshold for him for 2025 that he knows will push him a little bit. Maybe it's a batting average goal or a number of home runs goal, because as much as he might not feel comfortable with it, Devers is the face of this franchise right now. He has that big contract that the Red Sox want to keep him around for years to come. And it's a clear indication that they're going to continue to build the team around him. So he needs to perform. And in order for him to perform, he needs to be challenged. So if Cora can set numbers for him to meet at the plate that are slightly over what we saw from him in 2024, then I think he could be in good shape to really elevate his game. And even if he doesn't meet those numbers, I'm sure we'll at least see an improvement if those are the numbers in the back of his head that he wants to reach. And if Cora can help him set those types of goals, then he can be well on his way to being a more successful player in 2025 and come back from his shoulder injury and say, hey, everyone, I'm back and better than ever. And the good thing about Alex Cora is that he recognizes when guys have things to work on. For example, Rafael Devers did not attend Fenway Fest. He was supposed to be there, but he was noticeably absent after he bowed out due to a last-minute scheduling conflict. And that's just the most recent example of Devers avoiding the limelight and attention that comes with being a superstar and face of the franchise at that level. We've had other instances where he hasn't shown his face in those types of situations. I'm sure it doesn't mean any sort of malice or harm, but Alex Cora did comment on it and said little by little he wants Devers to get out of his comfort zone, and he feels like he can get out of a little bit of the worry of the language barriers and not wanting to face the media, and also being able to develop that confidence to speak on behalf of himself and the team. And Cora feels like little by little he can grow in that regard, and it'll just help the team as a whole. So I like how Cora holds people accountable when they do something that might not be for the best look for themselves or the franchise. So I want Cora to continue to keep holding guys accountable in 2025. That's another expectation I have of him, hold guys accountable. And finally, I want him to be able to manage the bullpen in the right way. I think he had a tough situation in 2024 because there were guys injured, so he was kind of forced to use guys in spots he wouldn't have wanted to use them in. But I would like to see him make wise decisions when he has a better bullpen going into 2025 than he did in 2024. Make the decisions on when to throw guys based on when it makes sense, and putting guys out there in places where they can thrive. And I think he has ample opportunity to do that with the increased talent level out of the pen, but make sure that he's not taking advantage of or misusing guys in that way. So lots of expectations for Cora heading into the season, but do I think he's still going to be a great manager who will help the Red Sox to win lots of games because of what he brings to the table? Absolutely 100%. And coming up, expectations for him also include expectations for the players. And coming up, I'm going to be discussing some players who might be forced to step up really early in their Red Sox career. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. FanDuel is a great way to win lots of money quickly. I've seen a lot of people experience it, and that can 100% be you too. If you want to make sure that you're utilizing your money wisely, because it really does give you tons of opportunities to win, I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Hopefully, we are not disappointed with the Boston Red Sox heading into 2025, as there have been lots of questions surrounding what is the team's direction. Do they want to compete in 2025, or are they looking to compete more past that? And if you asked me this earlier on in the offseason, after they traded for Garrett Crochet and even after signing Walker Buehler, I would have said, wow, it seems like they're really trying to compete in 2025. But the fact that they've been pretty quiet since then indicates to me that that might not be the case, and they might be looking beyond 2025 into more like 2026 or 2027. Now, here's why. Because you still have a strong right-handed bat in Alex Bregman available on the free agent market. He's a guy who, yes, has had his offensive numbers decline over the last couple seasons, but he's always consistently hit well at Fenway over the course of his career. Every time the Astros would come to town and play the Red Sox, he would always, numbers-wise, crush it. And that's promising if the Red Sox were to want to sign him, is because he puts up those competitive numbers at Fenway Park. And not only that, but he has a veteran presence that I've talked about on the show before. He has a veteran presence that he can bring to the table that could serve the young players really well, because there's a lot to be said for a guy who comes in as a veteran and knows what it's like to win and has had that experience in the postseason numerous times. And when you have a young roster of guys who haven't really experienced that, it's hard for them to be fully prepared to face that kind of pressure. So bringing in Alex Bregman could work wonders for some of those players. But the question is, are they done? Are the Red Sox done making impactful moves? Yes, they've made some depth moves and tried to help round out their rosters at the minor league levels, and maybe even guys who could potentially be called up to the majors due to injury or whatever else might come up during the season. But are they done making an impactful move to add players to the major league roster that will help them for the 2025 season? I'm not ruling out them adding another high leverage reliever to the mix, because that could definitely help them a lot, especially because there are some question marks in the bullpen right now. Guys like Liam Hendriks coming back from being fully removed from the game for a while and having to come in and pitch. You don't really know how he's going to look. Same thing with Garrett Whitlock, another guy who's coming back from injury and needs to go out there and pitch. And these are two guys the Red Sox want to utilize in the pen regularly, but you don't really know what kind of shape they're going to be in early on. So adding another high leverage reliever definitely can't hurt. But I am inclined to believe that they might be done adding to the infield for two reasons. One, because they don't think it makes sense to have Bregman come in and roadblock some young prospects who could potentially come up and be the stars of the future for the team. And two, because they do have two young players in Vaughn, Grissom and Kristian Campbell, either of which could be the starting second baseman heading into opening day with Trevor Story at shortstop. And if they had Alex Bregman, he would probably play second base, with Story staying at shortstop, Devers at third, and Casas at first. So then what happens is, if they bring in Bregman, then where do Grissom or Campbell play? The Red Sox traded a guy who went on to win the Cy Young in 2024 to get Vaughn Grissom. So you would think they wouldn't want to waste his talent or the potential that he could bring to the table. So to me, the Red Sox might be justifying the fact that they have these players to not sign Alex Bregman, because they might say it just doesn't make sense to do that. So if they don't bring in a guy like Alex Bregman or trade for a veteran infield presence who could contribute for them, that shows that they have a lot of faith in Campbell and Grissom to potentially go out there and be the guys that play second base consistently and perform well. Now, when you have a guy like Vaughn Grissom, it's hard to really 100% feel confident in him, but it's also hard to not feel confident in him at all, because he simply just has not played enough games in a Red Sox uniform in order for us to say that he can pan out. He only took 105 at-bats in 2024 and recorded 20 hits with a batting average of 190 and 0 home runs. He also scored 10 runs, recorded 6 RBIs, and stole 2 bases. He had an on-base percentage of 246, a slugging percentage of 219, and an OPS of 465. Now, obviously, these numbers don't scream dominance. If anything, they scream the opposite. This guy needs a lot of work. And Grissom was a very highly regarded prospect in the Braves system. He wasn't really somebody that they were super thrilled to get rid of, but like I always say, you have to give to get in this league, and they gave him to get Chris Sale, who obviously benefited them and went on to win the Cy Young. So when it comes to Grissom, it's a question of, does he just need more time to establish himself with the Red Sox, or is he going to be somebody who struggles? It's not fair for us to draw either conclusion right now, because we haven't seen enough from him yet. So that makes it a little bit of a concerning situation, because obviously I'm sure there's potential there, and the Red Sox saw a lot of things about his game that they liked, which is why they traded for him. But it's taking a bit of a risk if you rely on Grissom to be the starting second baseman to begin the season, because because of the fact that, for one, he hasn't really been able to stay healthy with the Red Sox, which is why he hasn't been able to take as many at-bats or get as much time with this team. So is he going to be able to stay on the field? And for two, if he does stay on the field, is he going to be able to contribute consistently on offense? That's a question the Red Sox have to ask themselves, and they might have more confidence in him than they should right now. The other side of that token is Kristian Campbell, a very special Red Sox prospect who moved through the system very quickly. And I actually had Woo Sox play-by-play broadcaster Jim Kane on the show on Monday and Tuesday. If you missed that, feel free to go back in and check it out. But he was talking about Kristian Campbell's game and just how special he is and just how he is versatile in a lot of different aspects, which is true because he can play in both the infield and the outfield. But the Red Sox have a crowded outfield right now, so the chances of him playing there are kind of slim. He likely would play in the infield, but is he going to be ready for opening day? We don't really know. That is a situation where he's going to have to go out there and prove himself during spring training. And if he has a really good spring, are they 100% reassured that he's ready for the majors? Because the last thing I want the Red Sox to do is rush these prospects and have them come up earlier than they should be. And I hope they're not doing that here with Campbell. So they need to be really careful with how they go about that, because again, you don't really know if he's going to be ready. And even if he is ready, is he going to be able to handle the pressure that comes with playing at the major league level? Those are questions the Red Sox have to think about if they are relying on one of these two guys to play second base to start the season. From a fairness standpoint, in the Red Sox showing that they trust their players internally, it's a good look for them, but it's also very risky because they don't know how these guys are going to pan out, and they don't know for sure if they can rely on one of these guys 100% to play second base consistently. And yes, baseball is a gamble, and they've been investing and waiting for Kristian Campbell to have his opportunity for a long time now. So that likely to me is going to be the scenario where it's going to be either Campbell or Grissom that starts the season at second base, but it is 100% a risk because you still have a very young roster without the veteran talent really surrounding them fully, and you're taking a chance that one of these two guys starts at second base and can play it well consistently. So we'll have to see how that turns out for the Red Sox. I would not be surprised, though, if that is their plan and the opening day roster comes out and we see Campbell or Grissom's name attached to second base. So that is a move that we're going to have to look out for. But they did sign somebody recently who is a very versatile player, and I'm going to be talking about him here next. But don't forget that Locked On Red Sox is available wherever you get your podcasts. You can subscribe on YouTube or any other podcast platform and listen to my content daily, where I bring you the latest going on across the Boston Red Sox organization, whether it's prospect talk of the major league team, and I've brought some cool guests on too, so you don't want to miss out on those. So make sure you subscribe to it and subscribe to our other wonderful shows across the network: Locked On Patriots, Locked On Celtics, Locked On Bruins, Locked On Boston College. Lots of great opportunities to choose from if you are a Boston sports fan, if you want to hear about other sports going on and not just baseball all the time. Then you can listen to Locked On Red Sox and then listen to one of those shows after, or you can listen to Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan, aka Sully, who is absolutely hilarious and will keep you up to date on all things going on across the league. So if you want to hear about other teams, you can subscribe to Locked On MLB on YouTube or any other podcast platform, and Sully will keep you 100% entertained. I promise. Great show. Head there and subscribe right after this. As we look ahead to the 2025 season for the Boston Red Sox, we hope to see them be more successful than they were in 2024 when they finished the season at 500. They were in the wild card conversation for the majority of the season until the very end. And now we're hoping that they can be good enough to where they can actually get a playoff spot. And yes, there are some question marks still on this roster. And while the Red Sox do need to make another move or two to really solidify this roster for 2025, they have been focusing on making some depth moves recently too, as they did agree to a minor league contract with free agent infielder Abraham Toro. his minor league contract does include an invitation to Major League Spring Training. He's a very versatile player who can kind of play a multiple variety of positions within the infield. He turned 28 last month and was a well-regarded prospect with the Astros, who has at times flashed some of that potential in the majors. He posted a roughly league average batting line and popped 11 homers in 95 games between Houston and Seattle in 2021, which was the same season that saw the Astros deal him to the Mariners in exchange for reliever Kendall Graveman. Toro appeared in 60 games with Seattle following that trade, walking at a slightly above average clip and fanning in only 13% of his plate appearances during that age 24 season. At the time, he looked like a potential regular for the Mariners, or just at the very least, an off-used and versatile semi-regular. He's a switch hitter who saw his output crater in 2022, batting only 185 with a 239 on base percentage and 324 slugging in 352 plate appearances with the Mariners. The following offseason, he was traded to the Brewers in return for Jesse Winker and Colton Wong, a move that didn't pay 2023 dividends for either team. But he did hit well in AAA for the Brewers, just never got a real look in the majors, tallying just 21 plate appearances as a Brewer. Milwaukee flipped him to the A's in the 2023-24 offseason, netting righty Chad Patrick in return. Toro then hit 240 with a 293 on base percentage and 350 slugging in 364 plate appearances with Oakland before being passed through waivers and electing free agency at the beginning of the current offseason. He has yet to produce in the big leagues with a career average so far of 220 with a 285 on base percentage and 353 slugging. But he spent the majority of his time in pitchers' parks like T-Mobile and the Coliseum. And because he's a switch hitter, that will give him a little more versatility in terms of his ability to be a threat. He has a career 305 average, 396 on base percentage, and 486 slugging in parts of 5 AAA seasons. And he has experience at third base, second base, and to a lesser extent, first base. He gives the Red Sox some more depth in the infield as the team continues to face that glaring second base question. But because of the fact that Campbell and Grissom both are inexperienced, they might let Toro fight for that second base spot heading into the season, which will be interesting. It's just a matter of how he does and if he's able to prove himself enough this spring training to the point where he's ready to get up to the majors and perform, because he has been a nice AAA hitter. It's just a matter of can he convert that over to the majors. And so far, he hasn't been able to do that super well. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with him and the Red Sox infield situation. He was invited to spring training as a non-roster invitee, along with shortstop Marcelo Meyer, outfielder Roman Anthony, infielder/outfielder Kristian Campbell, catchers Nathan Hickey and Mark Kolosvari, and pitchers Giovanni Moran, Brian Van Bell, and Jacob Webb. So the Red Sox did announce that they invited a new group of guys as non-roster invitees. So I think the hope for the Red Sox for Toro is that he helps make their decision a little bit harder about who to start at second base this season. And it almost indicates to me that they aren't really interested in making any sort of bigger signing for the infield. Again, it's still possible that they do, because they might just see him as depth in the minors. And then if somebody gets injured, he gets called up to the majors. But if they decide they're not going to pursue another infielder this time around, he's somebody who the Red Sox believe can provide some of that value and depth and be a guy who might be able to be a placeholder at second base until Campbell is ready or until they see more from Grissom and feel more confident that he could be the guy that could start in that role. So again, not a bad signing, somebody who could definitely have the potential to provide lots of value for this team as long as he's able to transfer his numbers from the minors over to the majors if he gets the opportunity to get called up. And if you're a Red Sox fan, it's a nice move. You can sit here saying, okay, not a bad depth move for sure. Somebody who could give us some versatility and could play a few different infield positions in case we were to get an injury or something. But I still want to see more, which I 100% understand. This isn't a tone-setting move that the Red Sox made to say, okay, here's a bona fide infielder who will definitely help make us a better team. They still have yet to make that splash. But as for Toro, there definitely is upside there as a guy who has produced sometimes, just not consistently. And we need to gain that consistency from him in order to be confident in the type of player that he can be at the major league level. So we'll have to see how that all pans out. As a Red Sox fan, I'm very excited about the season. I'm optimistic. I do feel like they are a better team than they were in 2024, but they haven't necessarily wowed me this offseason to the point where I'm ready to say that they are a World Series contender yet. They had the opportunity to do that. They didn't aggressively pursue some players as much as they should have, which is very disappointing, but I do think they have a chance to be a playoff team in 2025. So we'll have to see how everything plays out. As always, I do appreciate you making Locked On Red Sox your first listen today and every day. Like I always say, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.